All right, well, welcome to Baja Sessions. I'm here on the Blue Sea Advertising headquarters recording the show today, and I'm with Geoff from Baja Bound Insurance. How you doing, buddy?
Really good. Thank you for having me.
Thanking for driving up.
That was a piece of cake.
Yeah, I tell you have to drive home, and you'd be like, damn, why did I drive up?
Well, yeah. No, it's driving in the cities is always a challenge, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, good. So you just got back from Cameron Steele's trip, right?
Yeah, we did the trail emissions with my wife and kid went along with us. And it was a little daunting at first thinking about it because my daughter's about 2.5.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of miles. But we had a great experience, got to see all the missions and historic sites, as well as some fun stuff, ate some great food and met some great people. And yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
What's Cameron been doing that, 3 or 4 years maybe?
This is the 5th trail of missions that he's done.
And is it one a year?
One a year, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's down there doing so many things. I can't even keep up anymore with what he's doing, what's next, right?
He's like a shark. He never stops moving.
Yeah.
It's basically back from one trip onto the next thing, be it a race or, a fun ride or producing a TV show. So
I would have to say, and I want to get Cameron on this show, I promised Jim Beaver, who does Down and Dirty, he's all about off-road. I promised him I wouldn't do a bunch of off-road guys. But Cameron pretty much, if you think about guys that know Baja, I don't know who would know Baja more than Cameron right now in our lifetime.
You know what? Well, within that off-road realm, Kurt LeDuc, who was on the trip.
Yeah, good point.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Like every 15 minutes, he'd be like, okay, see that little mountain pass over there? If you go over there, and he would just have some little anecdote. He's like a Baja Wikipedia. Him and Cameron together were phenomenal in educating the crew about, where we were driving and what we were going through. And, about half the people on that trip, it was their first time to Baja, so it had to have been a cool experience for them.
How great is that? Because I love bringing people to Mexico and just showing them the stoke of the people, the views, the dirt roads. How great is that to be around that many people that have never been before?
Yeah, no, it was really fun sharing sharing the road with everybody, and for some of these people, it's their first experience, and man, I've driven a lot of the places that we went to, and some of them were brand new to me, but to do it from the Tecate border all the way to Cabo, having never been in Baja before, must have been such an eye-opener.
Oh, I bet. I tell everybody that wants to go down there for the first time, I said, Baja doesn't get special until you get south of Ensenada. Once you get out of that big city and you start heading out into the roads where there's not the population you just saw between Tijuana, Rosarito, and Ensenada, it just gets really, interesting and great and beautiful and all those things.
Yeah, well, they did it right. They crossed at Tecate and then went down through the pine forest.
Oh,
which,
perfect.
People, when they think of Baja, they're thinking of deserts and cactus, and all of a sudden you cross the border, and an hour in, you're going through an amazing pine forest, and it's one of those surprises.
Yeah.
That people don't expect snow in Baja either. They went to the observatory as well. Obviously, there was no snow at this time of year, but it's just it's so unique.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Now you mentioned Kurt. He's got his own tour business too, right?
I believe so.
Maybe
he just did the Baja Legends thing.
Okay.
I think he was really. I don't know if he's got a tour business, but I think he was a big part of putting that whole project together.
Well, hey, Kurt, if you're listening, give us some details about your show or what you're doing, and we can talk about it. Of course, I spent a lot of years racing with Cameron, and you've known him for many years, so we love what he's doing, and he's bringing the pro tourism to Mexico. Like you said, you had a bunch of new people there. Last question for you about the tour. You've been to Baja a lot.
Yes.
What interested you enough to go do a tour besides Cameron probably twisting your arm?
Man, I think it was just the opportunity to do something with my family. And I think since Cameron's had a daughter, a lot of these trips have become more family friendly.
Yeah.
And my wife wanted to do it. We've been traveling enough with our daughter that we felt confident that she would be okay on, some of these days where we're doing several hundred miles and a lot of it off road. It just sounded like, it was kind of a perfect timing for us.
Yeah, good for you. I think it just proves there's so much to see down there, regardless of how many times you've been down. There's always something new to see. You obviously made some new discoveries on this trip, and especially you can do it with a host like Cameron. So that's really cool. If you're listening, you want to get more information about Cameron's stuff, reach out to me. I'll connect you directly. and we'll see if we can't get you hooked up with him. So, one thing that often comes to mind, and this will be my 11th year racing professionally. My first 2 years were with Cameron down in Mexico. It's always a concern of protection, right? And, do you have the right gear, the right vehicle? Is your vehicle maintained? And then typically, you can vouch, as you're about 15 minutes away from the border, it's like, oh, we need insurance.
Yes.
So that brings me to you, Baja Bound Insurance. You guys have always been there for me, and I really appreciate that. And I know you're there for a lot of people, but I thought it'd just be important to hear your story, how you guys started the business, and put you on the show because Baja United and the podcast itself is very pro-tourism and everything that's happening down in Mexico. And I want people to feel comfortable going down there. And I think what you offer is a big component of that level of comfort and the amount of years that you guys have been doing it. So why don't you tell us, because it's probably pretty fascinating, how your company started.
It's a funny story. So the first Baja Bound opened in 1994. And like you said, it was usually a last minute thing because at that point in time, pre-internet days, it was a drive-through experience. You would go and go to a drive-through, hand off your registration and driver's license, and they would scratch out a policy, handwritten, and off you went. So Doc Morton, and we call him Doc because he was in fact a doctor by trade.
Okay.
He was. We were in high school. So the main owner of BajaBound.com is Hank Morton. His father was Doc Morton. And Doc learned how to surf when he was about 45 or 46. We were all in high school.
Never too late to get in the water.
Yeah. But he was like a fired up kid. He was, he wanted to go surfing all the time and he wanted to take us surfing. But he had grown up traveling all throughout Mexico. So he had a love for it. And so he started taking us on weekend trips, just short trips camping. And then as he got more into it, we did a couple longer trips, like 2-week trips down to Scorpion Bay. And that was all like 1990, 1991. And he kept continuing on doing the trips. I graduated high school and was no longer going. But shortly thereafter, just because, by virtue of the location of his doctor's office, which was on Coronado Avenue in the 5, 3 exits up from the border, he decided to put in a drive-through window for Mexican insurance.
At his doctor's office?
At his doctor's office.
Okay, what kind of doctor was he?
He was just a general physician.
Okay.
Yeah. So he got his receptionist to get licensed. And so they literally had, a little drive-up window that, when a car pulled in, it would ding, and she would leave the doctor's office, run over, and handwrite a policy. And so that that went on for maybe 3 or 4 years, and he was kind of at the end of his career, prepping for retirement. I wouldn't say it was a very successful, amount of money. It functioned by the location alone.
Sure.
But right around that time, 97, 98, the whole internet thing was really starting to gain momentum.
Yeah.
The whole .com boom was happening. And around that time, people were wondering, hey, is Mexican insurance something that could be done online? And so at that point, Hank had just graduated. He went to Stanford, and very, 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 very smart guy, very tech savvy. And he was very much, interested in this whole new .com world that was developing.
Yeah.
And so he actually, his dad had shut down the office, and Hank basically taught himself how to build a website and code a back-end whole database. And that was when the first Baja Bound website was launched. He launched it in 1999.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think he ever expected it to be a viable business.
Right.
It was more of like a way to teach himself something that made sense with the business that his father had started. And slowly but surely, it just kind of started gaining momentum. And he ran it by himself for the first couple of years. I came on in 2003. My sister came on about 8 months later. And we kind of were like, this is really cool. I had been traveling to Mexico ever since high school.
Yeah.
My sister had worked in Mexico City. Hank had done extensive traveling throughout Mexico and South America. We've all had the passion for traveling down there. So it was kind of cool to be able to take something that we loved, that we've been doing since high school, and turn it into, I never wanted to be involved in insurance. It never was appealing to me.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was insurance enabling people to travel to Baja
yeah.
was really where it hit home. And
sure.
We felt like we had kind of a cool idea. Very humble beginnings. We never borrowed money. We never, we basically just grew it from the ground up.
Yeah.
And, it was a lot of fun. I mean, none of us really knew what to expect. But now here we are, almost 20 years since the first website launched, and almost 25 years since the business began. We're plugging away and having a great time, and having a fun time doing business.
It's pretty incredible if you think about it.
Yeah.
I think the old doctor had some grit there, just throwing it out there. I mean, I would like to have seen that. Let's put it that way. That would have been pretty neat.
No, it's a funny story.
So just from an educational purpose, I mean, we all know how important it is to have insurance in the United States, and it's required and this and that. And can you tell, is insurance required in Mexico if you're going to drive down there?
So what the biggest consideration is, if you cause an accident when you're down in Mexico, the authorities want to see that you have an insurance policy that comes from a Mexican company. So basically, Baja Bound, we're a broker for two companies based in Mexico.
Okay.
One in Mexico City and one in Guanajuato. So, and basically with those policies, it provides legal assistance. So if you have a serious accident, an adjuster is going to come out, and if it requires it, they'll get legal assistance for you. It's all included in the cost of the policy, and it covers the liability exposure that you might incur.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's, you can get full coverage policies as well that will cover your vehicle for damage and theft. So there's a range of options, but more than anything, it solves the problem of you doing damage to somebody else's property and not having a way to pay for it.
Sure.
So
sure. Just like here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I know I've only had one experience with a race team member that's actually had to utilize the service, but at the end of the day, he was grateful to have it, and I know that he felt the process was as smooth as it could be expected to be, especially in another country and having to come back home and deal kind of with that cross border. I mean, do you guys see a lot of claims coming out of there? Or?
Yeah, so we don't handle the claims directly.
Mm-hmm.
The claims are handled by the two companies that we represent, which are HDI Seguros and Chubb Seguros.
Yeah.
But we oftentimes, like you said, there's complications. They might have an accident, an adjuster comes out, then they come back home, and a lot of times we bridge the gap and help them, figure out what the next steps are. And with actually HDI, they've changed hands a couple times. It's still the same company, and Ace has also turned into Chubb. But we've been working with HDI since 2003 and Chubb since 2005.
Yeah.
So we've got really good relationships with these companies, and we're able to contact them directly, contact their claims team, and say, hey, can we get clarification on this? What do we need to do next? So we don't settle the claims by any stretch of the imagination, but we are definitely there to help our clients when they need an assist, or if they just need a follow-up or some additional information.
Yeah, and then so your insurance covers them all the way through both states in Baja, or
it's actually the entire country of Mexico.
Oh wow,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, and that's the thing. Since we started off as a drive-through, the name Baja Bound was perfect because pretty much everybody coming down the 5 was going to Baja.
Yeah.
But so in an internet world where you get people from Texas going to mainland Mexico, a lot of times we get the call, hey, does this cover me in mainland Mexico? Like, oh yeah, it does.
Huh? I see. I didn't know that. I'm glad I asked that question. So in this room, there's 2 of us, by the way. Asking the question, is it safe down in Mexico, would be quickly refuted. I mean, not refuted, but we would both say it's an extremely safe place to be, and we'd encourage as many people to head south as they possibly could, I guess without clogging up our dirt roads too much. But I've just had a wonderful time down there, and without being experts in safety, I mean, what's your impression? You go down there. What do you think?
I'm of the mindset, I've been fortunate to travel, a little bit all over the world. actually growing up as a kid and now as an adult and a father. I just feel like it's like anywhere. It's kind of a common sense thing.
Yeah.